Okay, I did it. I wrote down the top 6 mistakes that salespeople make on sales calls, cold calls, whatever they are. This is what they do that really pisses off their listeners. So if you're in sales or if you're trying to level up your sales game, you got to listen to this because I guarantee you are doing some version of this. So let's go. The first thing, apologizing for calling. I get a lot of people who, when I'm doing role plays with them, they start saying stuff like, hey, blah, blah, blah. I'm so sorry to catch you at a bad time. I'm so sorry to disturb your afternoon, but I just wanted to go. Immediately, when you start saying, I'm sorry, it turns off the caller because you are sorry that you exist. Now, confident salespeople, they don't feel this inauthentic need to apologize for calling. They're confident. They're like, hey, I'm actually really excited to get you on the phone because I've been trying to reach you for a while. I need to talk to you about XYZ. They are very clear on why they're calling and why it's important. If you're like, hey, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm sorry for bumping into you at the mall. I'm sorry for knocking over your drink. Like, those are things you're sorry for. You're not sorry for doing your damn job. So number 1 is being apologetic. That is huge no. The second thing is asking a lot of direct questions. So again, when I'm role playing with people on what to say during sales calls, they will ask me a lot of direct questions like, do you have a minute of time to catch up? Is this a good time to speak? Are you free to connect? Can we please discuss this further? These are all asking for permission. Again, kind of related to point number 1, but then also being just in general an ineffective format of questioning. Direct questions like yes or no questions like that really don't take the caller anywhere except to answers like no. No, I'm not free. No, this is not a good time. No, I don't want to talk to you. No, I have no interest. So if you ask direct questions, your biggest problem is that you set the prospect off into a pattern that you don't want them to fall into, which is basically no, this is not a good direction. You don't want your prospect to stop talking to you. So never ask direct questions. You really have to get used to the open questioning format. So who, what, when, where, why, how. Keep things open. Get people talking. Small talk, big talk, it doesn't matter. Just get used to open questioning. Number 3 is sounding unsure of yourself. And this comes across when people are using 2 main communication problems, which is one of them is upspeak. I have a minute. I have something to talk to you about. I really wanted to reach out. I wanted to see if you're free. Like, this is asking for permission. Again, it makes you sound junior. So upspeak is a definite no-no. If you see in all of my sales trainings and all of my videos, I'm talking in clear downspeak fashion where I'm ending my sentences with a downward note. Yes, you can go up during the conversation like I'm doing now, but you have to end the conversation on a downward note. You have to end every sentence on a downward note to get used to the cadence of downspeak. So downspeak is extremely important to sounding authoritative and knowledgeable. Secondly, try not to use a lot of these filler words and word crutches and verbal tics. So for some people, it's the word like. It's also like ums and ahs for certain people. We all have our problems with speech. And these are things that we constantly have to work on. So that's why recording yourself, monitoring yourself as you speak, slowing down, these are all strategies that are helpful to you if you want to start monitoring yourself and how you sound. So this requires a little bit of self-policing, but it's well worth the effort because it makes you sound more confident in yourself, which then makes the listener feel like they can trust you more. The issue a lot of times with prospecting is that the person being prospected doesn't like it when you sound confused, when you sound unsure. They're like, how can I even trust this person? This person knows probably less than I do, right? So you want to earn their trust and be an expert in your field. Number 4, this mistake happens a lot when salespeople don't have a clarified mission, a clarified reason for the call. They'll say the reason for my call is that I just wanted to check in with you. That's not a reason. That's ambiguous. Be very clear. I'm calling because specifically I wanted to talk to you about your career plans. You've been at the same company for the last 3 years, and I wanted to see how's your work going? How is your career going? These are the type of conversations that I'm always interested to have with passive candidates like yourself. A lot of headhunters, I'm in the field of sales in specifically headhunting, agency recruitment. A lot of headhunters will just say, I wanted just to call to check up. I just want to see how you're doing. that's way too generic. It's way too general. You got to get really specified, very tight on the reason for the call so that the prospect can feel, again, confident that you know what you're doing because they're talking to a pro here. Number 5, this one I actually had to write out a few different ways. This specific mistake happens when salespeople use the same stale phrases. Stale phrases such as, great question, I'm happy to answer that, blah, 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 blah. Prospect asks another question, great question, happy to answer that, blah, blah, blah. You gotta get a little bit more diversified. You've got to find out different ways to say certain things. A lot of people like the sound of their own voice during sales, and this is a big issue that a lot of salespeople have, is that they like talking so much, but they have very little substance. This is a common gripe that many people who are being prospected feel. They're upset at salespeople because they're like, God, this person just talks nonstop and they say very little. So this is what happens, is when the salesperson isn't able to communicate in a way that is diversified and makes sense. Instead, they just ramble on, making very little actual points just to hear the sound of their own voice. So you got to get a little bit more clever with the word choices you use and how much you speak. The last mistake that I see a lot of salespeople doing, whether it's on their sales calls or during role plays, is that they don't know how to end the call. They're not really leading the prospect in any definitive way. They're just kind of like, well, this was a nice conversation, I guess, goodbye. And that leaves a lot of opportunity up for chance. Instead, you should have a clear plan for which way the conversation should end. If the prospect is ready to buy, you go on that way. If the prospect is not ready to buy and instead you want to enroll them in your golden loop, as in your like mechanism to keeping in touch with them, then you also have to make that word track available to them. Lastly, if they're not a fit for your business or your service and you really don't think you ever want to talk to them again, you need to give them a reason why. Hey, I'm sorry, I can't help you. These are the reasons why. If there are alternative services that you can offer them, you can also plug them in at that point. What prospects are looking for is leadership. Ultimately, that's what they want from salespeople. They want salespeople to lead them because if you're in sales, you better be the expert in your field. And if you're not the expert in your field, then you're useless. So when they're talking to an expert in their field, they're expecting that that person knows what to do and how to do things and what are the next best steps. So that is the expectation that top people have for prospectors. So if you're going to cold call someone, you better come across authoritative, knowledgeable, useful, smart, and you come across that way by asking the right open questions. So get back to the grind, craft all the open questions you need, work on how you sound, practice how you converse with others, and make sure you're doing better and better every day because this is how you get to become a top player in your field.